going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. Today it's all about Zoas, and we have on JoshPorkSandwhich. How you doing, buddy?
How you guys doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. So you are what I'm going to call the Zoa Master. I know you obviously do other corals, but you're very heavily into Zoas, and you've been doing it for quite a while,
Yeah,
which is awesome. You know, like that beautiful background right there is like a shot from one of your systems, which is a very cool poster, by the way.
thanks.
Yeah. So do you do you mainly just sell at the coral shows? Like, do you do much online sales, or do you mainly just do all the events? Because I know you hit up a ton of shows.
I I used to ship, but now I'm very busy with work. This is a hobby for me, so I
Mm,
don't I don't have time sometimes to run home and then go and ship corals and stuff like that. So I mostly 99% of the times it's only through the shows.
yeah. So if people got to hunt you down if they want to get your good stuff.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in the hobby for? How long have you been, building up this collection?
I think I've been in the hobby maybe since 2009, 2010,
Mm,
if I remember correctly.
that's pretty solid. That's a good 12, 13 years. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with Zoas, I figured today would be kind of good to chat about, tips for keeping them, how to be successful for them. I see some
Mhm.
people buy them and, they melt away. And, I've had the odd one happen, an expensive one, of course, the cheap ones, will just take over your tank, and expensive ones can be more finicky. But is there any kind of key main things that you do in your systems to keep them happy and thriving? Or, do you still run into the odd issue with them, or are they?
Oh, I kill more zoas than everyone. I'm not. They melt on me too. It's to me zoas. It's just like any other coral. You need to have your system. Your parameters need to be on point. You can't
Hmm.
be just neglecting your tank. So for me, the zoas grow the best when all the parameters are normal. Like sea
Yeah.
levels. Other than that, everything just either wilts away or just dies slowly. If you
Hmm.
take care of your tank, your lights are not too high, everything should be okay.
Yep. Now, just speaking at natural sea levels, do you kind of just keep that for your tank across the board? Like, do you put more of yours in higher light, or you're like, okay, some do better in high, some do better in low, or is it kind of just across the board the same for most of them?
So usually what I do it's when I get especially a new zoa, one that
Hmm.
comes from the wild, it's I frag it and then I put it at different par levels. So I put one in highlight, I put one in low light, I put one in the middle, and
Hmm.
then I try to see where it does better.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, actually.
Yeah.
Do you find that fragging them affects them much for health? Like when you get a fresh one in versus leaving it alone for a while? Do you find them to be more finicky if it's a fresh import one, or are they pretty
It,
hardy?
it all depends. It all depends where it's coming from. There's this like back in the day, the golden marindo rocks that used to come with beautiful zoas.
Hmm.
Those I had to leave at least for a month in my system before I fragged them. But other zoas from Indonesia right away you could frag. Before many years ago when we used to get zoas from Hawaii,
Hmm.
those right away I had to put in peroxide and water with peroxide and then frag within a few days and they will do
Huh.
great.
Yep.
But most of the times the zoas when you frag them they multiply really quick. So if you want them to like multiply fast, you
Frag
have to
more.
frag them. If you leave them grow like in big bunches they grow slow, but sometimes you frag one and you end up getting 10 and in a few weeks, in a month, a babies come from all
Yep.
over the place.
I mean, hey, that's kind of a nice bonus. Probably, especially in your systems, right? For spreading them around, you're like, yep, grow babies, grow.
Yeah. Sometimes, it's like when you go on vacation,
Yep.
sometimes you come back and everything looks beautiful because you haven't touched it. So I try that approach. I try not to touch my stuff too
It,
much
but
unless, I'm getting ready for a trade show. Then, I'm
mhm,
there every day, every hour, just messing with them.
yeah,
But other than that, I try to leave them alone.
it's so true, and it's funny. Like every time I go away and come back on those changes, but you don't see it when you look at your tank every day, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, everything's happy, so much has changed. But it's
Yeah.
always cool when that happens. Um,
Mhm.
on the nutrient front, do you pay much attention to nitrates and phosphates in respect to those?
I think I haven't tested that in months. My son's helping me a lot now with the tanks. So he tests every once in a while, but
Hmm.
I never. When I had SPS on Monty's, maybe once every few months I used to test
Hmm.
the the. It's honestly I'm gonna be honest. I don't
That's
test.
that's fair. Do you do much for water changes or not really, or just
I
more you?
try to do, yeah. Well, I've always, since I started, since 10, 11 years ago, I've
Mhm.
always done at least a 10% water change every. I will say maybe at least once a month minimum.
Hmm. Okay,
If
that's
I
pretty good.
try, if I'm not too busy, I try to do, 5% every 2 weeks. But at least I try to do 10% a month.
Hmm. Okay, that's pretty good. Um, Now I've read a bazillion things in the past, like vitamin C dosing and all these things. Do any of these things, in your experience, make much of a difference with
I
Zoas?
tried them all. I tried them all.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's I don't. I add from Aqua Vitro. I
Hmm.
add fuel to the food. When I'm feeding, I
Yeah.
just mix fuel there in the food. So when I feed, they're getting a little bit of it. But other than that, I don't add
That's
anything. Nothing crazy.
okay. And then I've never kept just Zoas. I've always had mixed reef tanks. Eventually, I want to do a big, really cool Zoa only tank. But as
Yeah.
for parameters, are you having to worry? Like, is there much of a swing in any, like magnesium and elk and whatnot with just Zoas, or is it relatively stable off water changes?
I think every tank is different, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but my tank always consumes a lot of magnesium, and I don't know if it's the Zoas. I don't know what's consuming the magnesium,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always had to be on top of it because that's the one parameter that always gets drained so quick. Other than that, everything else is just pretty normal. Just I don't know the exact how much I dose a day,
Mm-hmm.
but magnesium, I always had to be on top of it.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That is, yeah. I don't know. I'm really inspired to do a zone only tank now, so I'm curious to compare future notes and like whenever this happens one day. Recently, I
Hey,
started
if
like
you
I
were if you weren't so far, man, I will tell you, hey, come over, get some stuff. But you're far, bro.
where are you located?
I'm in Miami,
You're in Miami. All right.
Florida. Yeah,
I will hit you up to come check it out when I'm in that realm one day. It'd be cool to like come check out all your systems.
it'll be awesome, bro.
Yeah, we'll make it happen eventually. One day it'll happen.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so okay, do you have any idea why Zoas melt? Most of the time, Zoas are like rock solid for me, but I have had some, like a couple of the overly priced ones, of course, like the expensive ones that I
Yeah.
bought, and then they just slowly just fade and do nothing, and other ones will like take over your tank.
There's different things, man. Like a lot of times, just the change of parameters.
Hmm.
That's the main thing. There's somebody that keeps their phosphates at point, 5, and when you put them in your tank and they're at 15, sometimes they stress. Even just taking them from from somebody's tank to your house.
Hmm.
The temperature fluctuations happen, besides pests, fish picking at them. There's many things, but what I've seen the most is just uh pests. Whenever you put them in their tank, they come with pests, or
Hmm.
they're just super stressed too, from wherever they're coming from.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. There was the one I was thinking. I bought a couple of, like the Grandmaster Cracker, one of those ones, and I had
Uh-huh.
two heads, and it just did nothing forever, and eventually melted. I was like, "Ah." It's like I was,
Honestly,
yeah,
if I'm being honest, a lot of times in the trade shows,
hmm,
it's fresh frags, man.
yeah,
If you see, if you're gonna go to a trade show, you're gonna buy one polyp. A
hmm,
lot of times that one polyp, it's a fresh cut. That's
yeah,
the worst time to buy a zoa. It's a single zoa. That's why
hmm,
I try to always frag months before a show, and make sure that
yeah,
the zoas have a few babies, even 2 or 3 zoas,
hmm,
because that guarantees that when it goes to somebody's tank, it's gonna live. But
yeah,
usually, one zoa polyp frag, I never buy one polyp because of that, unless I see a baby coming out. That
hmm,
means it's been fragged a few weeks ago. But when you buy a fresh zoa frag,
yeah.
man, the chances are very low that it's gonna survive.
No, that's true. Even when I frag some, same thing. I think if I've had a single frag, and I've tried that, half is 50-50 if they make it or not, where you have a group of them, they're
Yeah,
usually fine. So that's
yeah.
very true. Now, when I do those two, same thing. Like rather than cutting it, I'll usually try and like scrape underneath it, so you get a bit of that little mat with it, which seems
Yeah.
to improve success a bit.
Yeah, the frag plugs I use are very thin, so I
Mm,
usually cut the frag plug, and I try not to scrape the Zoa. So the whole frag plug, you're gonna get a little piece of rock under it,
yeah,
and again,
that's
it's
the
just it
best.
just makes the chances of that surviving even longer.
Hmm. Now we were talking about pests earlier. I know you did also mention the peroxide dip, and I've done that. We just mix salt water and peroxide, and that's worked very well for Zoas.
Yeah.
For me, if there's like algae on plugs, stuff like that, like I've used that to kind of
Hmm.
just kill it all for the tank, and that's kind of been my go-to for Zoa dipping. But
Yeah.
is there anything that you'd normally recommend for someone bringing in fresh Zoas to avoid pests and stuff in the tank?
The only time that I used to use peroxide was for the Hawaii Zoas many years ago. Other than
Mm-hmm.
that, I use the Seachem dip
Mm-hmm.
because it's iodine based, and I use it for everything, even for fragging. That's what I use
Yeah.
to dip my Zoas after I frag them. It's the the Seachem dip. Just
Mm-hmm.
put it in there, man. Leave it a few minutes, and usually you see the stuff coming out. Also,
Mm-hmm.
Coral RX a little bit, not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it, but Coral RX I've used, and it's pretty good also.
Okay. So iodine or the Seachem ones, kind of the
The
go-tos.
Seachem one, it's iodine based, but also helps with the pest, to get
Mm-hmm.
them out of the rock. And every time I put it, you see the stuff come out. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Nice. Now, okay. Now, another big thing with Zoas that people always worry about is like paleotoxins. Is that much of a concern for you? If you're fragging, you wear goggles or gloves. Like, what's kind of your state on that?
Yeah, I wear, like, I don't know why, the first 3 or 4 years that I was in the hobby, I used to
Mm-hmm.
frag, no problems, everything was good. But after 3 or 4 years, I started getting allergies
Mm-hmm.
after I would frag. Like, I would go to bed and I couldn't breathe. So then I started wearing
Oh,
a
yikes.
mask,
Mm-hmm.
like one of those painting masks, the ones that has the two filters on the
Yeah.
sides. So I bought one of those, and I also wear a face shield
Mm-hmm.
for that because I've gotten shot in the eye
Yeah.
a few times. So after
It's a
that,
bit sketch.
now face shield, yeah, I wear the thick gloves,
Mm-hmm.
and I protect myself because I've done a few stupid things, fragging
Yep.
without protection, where I have a pink eye for a week,
Yep.
or where I used to use a Dremel, and the Dremel slipped and it cut my hand, and then
Oh,
I had to go on antibiotics because my finger turned, it got really fat.
oh,
So
yikes.
after that, yeah, now I buy the really thick gloves that they're hard to cut,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't use a Dremel anymore, of course. But uh,
Yeah.
just, yeah, you got to protect yourself, man, because that polytoxin is gonna get you. And any
Mm-hmm.
cut, if you get it on any cut, it's gonna get infected. You get it
Mm-hmm.
on your eyes. There's been reports where people have lost their eye.
Yikes.
Uh,
Yep.
when I cut myself, I had to be on antibiotics for a week because
Huh.
my finger got really nasty.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But you got to protect yourself, man. Especially that I told you I couldn't breathe at
Mm-hmm.
night after fragging, so I had to take for a while. I was taking one of those anti-allergy pills before fragging and stuff. Before
Mm-hmm.
I got the face
Oh,
mask with
crazy.
the filters.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I find
Mhm.
I've had it once where like literally I did feel kind of sick afterwards, and it was like not food poison. It was like, and I knew it was after my hands are in the tank and do the things, and it was like the
Yeah.
bigger ones. I find that the tiny Zoas I find to be pretty safe, but if you some of the more pally style, like the bigger heads, I figure like those ones are more of the risky ones in my mind. But again, you
Well,
don't ever
remember,
know.
yeah, the bigger ones hold more water. That's why they get big, because they suck water in. So when you cut on the big ones, they hold more water. They all
Good
spit.
point.
It's just the bigger ones hold, since they hold more water. That happens.
More juice to come at you. All right, so Fragging
More
Zoas,
juice.
definitely be safe. Don't do it, if you can do it more like a well ventilated area is probably better, or use a mask, you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the masks don't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
After COVID, you'll find them. I wear one from Harbor Freight
Yeah.
here. I don't know, it's like $14 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and I change the filters once a year,
Yeah.
and that's been great. Like,
Nice.
after that, I don't have to take a pill, nothing. They're great.
Perfect. Yeah, the other big thing is some form of safety glasses, right? Getting Zoa juice in your eye
Yeah.
is not a good place to
Yeah,
be.
so I wear, for me, the glasses, they get foggy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get a face shield, one that covers your whole face.
Yeah.
That way, if they spit, they go in the shield. So to me, that's the most comfortable, because the glasses usually get foggy.
Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah.
Okay, pro
And
tips.
again, it doesn't cost much.
Yeah, no, I mean safety's worth it. Like Zoas are beautiful. Like look at the background. Like it's like a little underwater flowers. Like they are amazing, but some of them can definitely be a little bit nasty.
Yeah.
Hmm. Do you have any favorite Zoas? Like, is there any like go-to ones that you just love?
To me, man, like, the oldies are
Yeah.
they're beautiful. I guess because those are the first ones that I started collecting. All the Hornets, Red
Mm-hmm.
Hornet, Purple Hornets, the Sunny D's, all those old
Yep.
ones, man. I love I love all those older Zoas, Captain Americas,
Mhm.
Fruit Loops, all those, man. To me they're all beautiful.
Yep.
There's really no favorite, but the old ones really have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I'm with you. I used to have tons of the Hornets. I need to recollect them all again one day.
Yeah,
Utter,
not a lot of people have them either. They're hard to find.
I know, I'll have to find them all. I have Utter Chaos has pretty much taken over my main tank. I have bazillions in there now,
Yeah,
which is cool. Between
yeah.
that and Rastas, I think those two are I have tons and tons of my
All
big mixed
those,
reef tank. But
all those oldies, bro. They're beautiful.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm just trying to look at the background of some of them. I probably know about half of the names. I'm kind of rusty on it these days, but like the
Let me open it. Let me see.
Salted Agave and some of those other ones, Emeralds on
Yeah,
Fire. Yeah, I don't know. They're so cool.
yeah. I just opened the poster. I'm looking at them in there. There's a
Yep,
lot in there.
there is. Dun. Are you up on all the names? Do you actually know what all of them are?
A lot of the names I use the old names. I know everything's being renamed 20 times.
Yeah.
So like I name stuff what I buy it. So whatever they tell me, that's what's gonna be. So the old stuff, if I bought it as a Sunny D,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sell it as something else. That's what
So,
I bought it as. That's what I remember.
Sunny D for life.
Man, Sunny D's are beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful zoas.
Yeah, it really is. Now, as for keeping them, okay, so basically standard water parameters, nitrate, phosphates, don't worry about it too much. Do periodic water changes. Do you target feed them or broadcast feed the zoas in your tank?
I broadcast.
Yeah.
I used to spot feed, but man, when my
Too
collection
much.
got bigger, I
Hmm.
gave up. I was like, no, man, I'm taking an hour feeding zoas now, and I just throw it now in the pump and just let it do its thing.
Yep.
Most of
And
the zoas, anyways, they eat fish poop. They don't even eat the food. They don't grab it. So
go for
that's
the
what I
free food
care about.
instead. Did
Yeah.
you notice much of a difference when spot feeding versus, I guess, not feeding them at all?
I didn't. That's why I
Yeah.
stopped because everything was doing the same.
Yeah.
I had separate tanks before, so
Hmm.
I tried it for a few months. I started
Hmm.
spot feeding a section, and the other not, and they were doing the same.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I was
that's fair
like,
enough.
no man, just throw it in the pump. Let it. If they want to catch it, they catch it. If not, let the hermits get it.
Less water changes, easier to maintain. I mean, if you don't have to, why bother? Now, do you have a lot of inverts like to keep stuff clean or fish in there, or is it pretty just quality?
I have a lot of blue leg hermits since
Hmm.
they're local to me. I just go to the beach and
Oh,
get a bunch
that's nice.
and just throw them in my tank. Usually tanks for the algae,
Hmm.
and what else I have? Just tanks, just a few clownfish just to look pretty.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's it. I don't have many fish
Hmm.
in my systems.
So mainly coral, just a few guys to kind of keep things maintained. It's kind of nice to have
Yeah,
local blue legs. Those things cost me a few bucks each. You're like, do 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 do. Thank you.
they're so expensive now. Before they were like, I don't know, like 10 cents each or something.
I
I
know.
just go to the beach, man, and you get a little bucket and you get 40, 50 in, I don't know, in 10, 20 minutes.
That's cool. Have you ever collected your own zoas?
Uh, a little bit here and there
Hmm.
in the beach, like the Miami, the Vice Zoas.
Yeah.
They're local to me, so
Oh.
sometimes I collected a few, but there's a few local people from me that get them.
Hmm.
And the problem with the local Zoas here, it's they get around 2,000 par of light,
Oh wow.
and for a few hours a day,
Hmm.
they're out of the water.
Yeah.
So they need a lot of light at the beginning. So I usually, if you know Colin Ford,
Hmm.
he collects them.
Yep.
So I usually let him do the hard work and acclimate them and kill all the ones he's gonna kill, and then I get from him whatever's alive and healthy because it takes a
Oh,
while for the local
yeah.
zoas to adapt to your tank.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think how much par they can actually take, eh? Like a couple thousand. Now,
Like they're out of the water. Like people don't get
yeah,
it. They're out of the water for hours,
yeah.
and the water comes back and they're fine.
Well, which is funny because like how much people worry about acclimating and all these things, and then back in the day,
Yeah.
you hear about people just like wrapping them in like a wet paper towel in a cup or something and
Yeah.
bringing them back, and like they can be some of them, they can one side they can melt, and the other side you can just keep them damp and they'll survive for days. Like it's crazy the difference in some of them.
Yeah, some of the zoas are shipped in wet newspaper.
Yeah.
And it takes 3 4 days sometimes, and they're fine.
Yep. Now, do you find much of a difference between, one and say like 100 par or, 1,000 par with most Zoas? Is there like, I know a lot of them can adapt over time, but,
Yeah.
taking, a wild collected one that's super high par versus one that you've had at lower par for a while, is there any real big difference in it? In the
What do
colors
you
or
mean?
anything? Like just in the colors or the looks of, the pull-up size? Like, is there any big differences that you've noticed versus, really high versus low par?
No, no,
Yeah.
it's everything adapts to whatever you have. But the high
Hmm.
par zoas and the low par zoas, they all do good as long as they are where they need to be.
Yeah.
So if you have a zoa that's high zoa, it's gonna do good there. You put it low, it's gonna
Hmm.
stretch. It's not gonna look as pretty.
Yeah.
So it's just finding that good spot where they're gonna be happy. But in
Hmm.
growth and stuff, it's Fruit Loops like lower light. So
Yep.
if you put a Fruit Loop in lower light, it's gonna grow great. You put it under high light, it's most likely it's gonna get super tiny and it
Hmm.
might melt away.
Yeah. I have seen some tanks where they had very, low flow, low light, and some of them, they had really long, stretchy heads, and some of them were like massive heads. But it's
Yeah.
crazy to see how much bigger some of them get if they are, trying to stretch and get more light and have bigger head to collect more.
Yeah, that's usually what I try to look for. It's to try to make them look bigger. Now, I don't
Hmm.
need, for them to grow 100 heads a month. I just want them to look big
Yep.
and nice. So that's why I usually keep them in different sections of the tank to see where they're doing good. And
Hmm.
I have 4 frag tanks, so I could move them around and see where they're doing better.
Yeah. That's a nice way to go. Now,
Yeah.
do you know, like, I don't know what you want to call it, but like more some like the microzoas, like the really tiny heads versus, some like the normal size ones? Is there any real big difference in those ones in your mind, or are they more or less the
I
same
think
for
the
everything?
I think those small ones grow faster,
Yeah.
the smaller ones. But other than that, it's no difference, man. Again, it's wherever you put them in the tank. If your
Hmm.
parameters are okay, they should be okay. You shouldn't have a
Yep.
problem growing anything. The problem is that a lot of times you only buy one frag, so you don't have
Yeah.
a lot of
Choice.
places to test. Yeah, so sometimes you put them in a section, they don't like it, and by the time you try to move them, they're too far gone. And
Mm.
that's the problem. A lot of people buy one frag and they put it in this section. It's not good for them. They melt
Yeah.
and they think they can grow the zoa. It's just you didn't put it in the right spot.
That's fair. So if someone is getting a new one and they don't know what it likes, is it better to do kind of like low light, low flow, something in the middle? Like, if you don't know, where are you going to start that Zoa in your tank?
If you don't know, every time I buy a zoa from someone and I only buy one frag because it might be too expensive or that's all they
Hmm.
have, I always ask them, what lights do you use?
Hmm.
Where do you keep it in the tank? What are you feeding? I try to ask everything I can to give that zoa the best
Paint that
chance
picture.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than if you don't know, man, it's usually the middle. Just put it
Hmm.
in the middle, medium light. Make sure they're getting flow,
Yep.
some good flow, and that's it. I
Hmm.
try not to put anything in a corner, too dark and stuff like that, because that's usually not good. The same with I don't put them in the middle under the lights because that's
Hmm.
too high. So
Yep.
usually I keep them in the middle.
Okay. What do you run for lights on your systems?
Right now I have in my main system I have the AI Hydras.
Hmm.
I think it's Hydra 64s, and then all the frag tanks have the Ecotechs,
Okay.
the fives, Gen fives,
Nice. Do you do the pros or the blues?
the blues.
Yeah. Nice. Get lots of good color pop out of those Zoas.
Yeah, I
And
like them. I like them. I think that I used to love the Hydras. Like I got like a lot of my posters that you see
mhm,
everywhere. They were grown with the Hydras, but then I changed to the Gen fives, and I
yep.
was happy. But I think the Hydras were growing my Zoas a little bit better.
Really, eh? I've never used them, but so many people have this like cult following of the Hydras. It's like,
I love them. I love
yeah.
them. I changed, and not that I regret it because I'm
Mm,
happy. Like everything's growing good,
mhm.
but I think I was getting a little bit better color with the Hydras.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that's interesting. Mhm,
I have actually one frag tank that has 2 Hydras and one
mhm.
Radion in the middle. My main display tank has the 3 Hydras, and then everything else is Radions.
Okay. Now, do you think it was better growth or just slightly different preferable colors or
I think my colors were a little better. I think
yeah.
growth is the same, I think colors looked a
Okay.
little bit brighter. With the it could have been the blue. I don't know. Maybe when I was taking pictures, maybe I was taking care of the tanks better.
Yeah.
But I think the Zoas were doing better
Okay.
under under that.
That's interesting. All right, maybe I'll find some when I do a Zoa tank one day.
Yeah.
How about for flow? What do you run for flow? High flow, medium, low, I guess. Like, what do you run for
I have
flow for yours?
Neros. I have Neros usually
Mm-hmm.
on both sides of the tank. I try to kind of like do like a whirlwind on my tank, just keep the flow going around.
Yeah.
So I usually just Neros. It's what I have in all my tanks.
What size are your frag tanks?
I have two frag tanks. They're 24 by 48,
Okay,
and they're 12 inches deep.
like the
And
little boy
then
style.
yeah,
Yeah.
the deep blue 60s, I think they used to
Okay.
call them back in the day. And then on the top, they're custom frag tanks. Those are 24 by 48, and they're like I think 7 or 8 inches tall. They're
Okay.
really small. And then I
Mm-hmm.
have a two-story system, so I have a tank on the bottom and a tank on the top.
Nice. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty.
just to
Pretty.
save the space. I have a
Yeah.
small area. I don't have that much space.
Now, are they connected together or are they all separate systems?
Everything's in one sump. I'm too
Yep.
lazy to be testing different tanks. It's
You know,
man, get it easy. One testing, that's it.
well, especially once it's happy, right? It's just easy. One set of
Yeah,
gear, one set of tests, one water
yeah,
change. No,
yeah,
that's definitely a good way to go. Okay, so parameters basically standard issue. Don't care too much about nitrogen phosphate. Flow, kind of moderate flow with Neros. Lighting, running the LEDs, so the hydros or the radions. Uh,
yeah.
what do you for dosing? Do you just do regular like 3-part dosing, or what do you do when you need a like? Do you have a
I
doser,
dose
or do you
my.
just tweak it when you need it?
Uh, I used to have a Neptune, and I used to use it to dose, but that fried on me. So
Mm-hmm.
I just do it by hand now.
Yeah.
Just daily. I just get the gallon and just dump some. So I barely even test now. So I usually just dump a little bit of alkalinity, a
Yeah.
little bit of calcium, and then magnesium. I check it maybe once every other week or once a week and see where it is.
The scientific glug in the tank and call it a day.
Yeah, I don't. I keep things simple. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't have anything, nothing fancy. People look at my tank and they laugh because it's it's so simple. It's easy.
Though, there's something nice about just keeping it simple, right? There's less stuff to worry about, less stuff to break or cause an issue. Once you know it, you know it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So you don't really ship anymore. So pretty much just a frag show. So if people want to get stuff
Yeah.
off you, they gotta get their butts out and go to some of the shows.
Yeah, I ship art. If you guys want to buy art, I have posters, I have metal
Yeah.
prints, all that stuff. Most bad,
Ooh,
but coral. Yeah.
how do all the Zoas come on the metal print? They always have like a cool like illuminance to the metal prints.
So they're printed with a UV ink,
Yeah.
so they glow when you put them next to the tank. So it's a
Oh, that's
special
cool.
ink.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. All right, I may have to get one of those off you at some point. I'm gonna check those out later.
Yeah.
They look good on the wall. Okay,
Yeah.
so do that. What else do you sell for stuff?
Mouse pads. I sell mugs.
Yeah.
I tried the clothing. It didn't do good, so I'm not doing clothing anymore. But other than that, just posters sell a lot. The metal
Okay.
prints, since I brought the metal prints maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, those have been my top sellers
Yeah,
because
that's cool.
people like, when you put it next to the tank, you want it to glow, you want it to look pretty.
Yeah,
So that's right now, it's what sells the most. That's usually what is sold out in my website.
that's awesome. How much do you sell those for out of curiosity?
They're $80.
$80? Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna check those out later. I'm gonna have to order one.
All right.
Do you ship to Canada?
Yeah, it's just a little pricey. I
Yeah.
have a lot of people that from Canada that they
Mhm.
end up shipping to New York, and they have either they go get it or they have family in New York, or it's always been like that. That's what's worked out, especially
Okay.
for big orders.
All right, that's fair. I'll hit you up next time I go to the border, and I'll pre-plan something.
You don't
That'll be
come
good.
you come to the US to do shows? You don't go cover shows?
Yeah, sometimes I used to go tons and tons, and then I had a kid, and then it slowed down. But I'll probably start up again, maybe this fall, if not next year. I will.
Yeah, go to Reefapalooza Orlando, man. I'll be there. Aquashella has been
Yeah,
great. Aquashella is going to be, I think, in November. I'll
nice.
be there. So go to one of the big shows. I usually go to the big shows. These last few years, I haven't traveled
Yeah.
much because the economy and everything's so
Mm-hmm.
expensive. I haven't had a chance. to go. But
Yeah.
once everything hopefully settles, I'll start doing all the shows again out of town. So far, the last 2 years, I'm staying in Florida, so
Yep.
I'm not going out of town.
No, that's fair. So Rap Orlando, you're going to be at, that's for sure for
Yeah,
the
so all the
spring.
Orlando, all
Yeah.
the Florida shows I do, Rap Orlando, I do
Yeah.
Aquashella, I do the Florida Frag Swap. There's two in
Mm-hmm.
Florida, one in February, one in
Yep.
June. I put that one together,
Oh, nice.
and whatever else is in Florida, I try to do. As long as I know the person, whoever's putting it together, I'm there.
No, that's awesome. Well, I will definitely have to come see you at one of those future shows.
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah. So if anyone wants to check you out, I'll definitely link to your Facebook and website and Instagram and all that good stuff in the description. But yeah, thanks for joining me and chatting Zoas today.
No, man. Thank you
Yeah,
for calling me.
awesome. Yeah, and as always, guys, if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe and check out all the links to Josh Pork Sandwich. Actually, quick question before we end it: how did you come up
Yeah.
with the name?
Oh man, that's an old high school name. There's a cartoon that they
Yep.
used to. You know that you remember the GI Joes. You're probably too young. How old
No,
are
no.
you? You
What?
know. So the
I
GI
remember it.
Joes.
Hell yeah.
So there was a guy. This guy called Fensler. He used to like voice over the GI Joes,
Yeah.
and there was one of those little clips
Mm-hmm.
where the kids are playing in the kitchen and they burn the kitchen, and then a GI Joe comes running, like screaming. He's cursing. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" And then he starts screaming, "Pork chop sandwiches." So we used to love those cartoons.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I was cooking for my girlfriend then, now my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I burned my parents' kitchen. So then all my friends started calling me Josh Pork Sandwich,
Yeah.
and then that game stuck, because then one of
Yeah.
my friends he used to develop video games, and every time
Mm.
he'll do a video game, he'll give us free access to the game, and he used to
Yep.
create names for us. So I was always Josh Pork Sandwich. Then when I started in the hobby, I put it as a joke, and I guess
It's
it
stuck.
stuck. Yeah, it stuck. So I'm stuck as Josh Pork Sandwich now.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate the story. I always wonder, I'm like, this has nothing to do with coral. How did you come up with this name?
No,
So,
man, look up Fensler pork sandwiches, and
okay.
you're gonna laugh. But he curses, So if you have kids around, don't put it.
All
But
right.
that's because I burned my parents' kitchen cooking for my wife.
That's awesome. That's a good
Yeah.
story. Well, definitely appreciate it. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. And definitely make sure to check out all the links in the description below.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.